Nigeria's electoral umpire, INEC, recently received over 100 applications from organizations and associations seeking registration as political parties ahead of the 2027 elections. The Commission is currently verifying whether the applicants meet constitutional requirements under Sections 222 to 224 of the 1999 Constitution as amended and Sections 75 of the 2022 Electoral Act. Now, if fully registered number of political parties could increase tremendously, there will be more active political parties by 2027. While some school of thought say the development will expand political representation and make the electoral landscape more competitive, vibrant and diverse, others say crowded field risk fragmentation, anti-incumbent sentiments aiding dominant parties. But in all, what is its implication to the Nigerian electoral and political landscape? These and other questions we hope to get answers to on the program Nigeria Today. Thanks for joining us as we discuss proposed registration of political parties. Welcome. I am Eucharia Clinton. To discuss the issue at hand, I have in the studio with me a political analyst and the chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform and convener, Say No Campaign Nigeria. Ezenwa Nwagu. Thanks for joining us on Nigeria Today.
Thank you, Eucharia. It's good seeing you again.
And joining us via Zoom today is Dr. Rauf Sakariyawo of the Department of Political Science, Nigeria Police Academy. You're welcome, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It is Rauf Zakariyawo.
Thank you so much for correcting me on that. So I will start with you, Dr. Rauf. We've seen a surge in registration. A lot of organizations are coming forward to say, okay, we want to register, we want to become a political parties. What does this mean, for Nigeria's democratic space?
Well, thank you. In a democratic environment, it is part of their political rights and it is part of our electoral law to have a multi-party arrangement because Nigeria practices multi-party system, meaning we are eligible to have beyond 2 political parties, which is encouraging in a way of trying to ensure competitiveness in a democratic space. However, the major concern has always been the abuse of having several political parties, particularly with our previous experiences, starting from during 2023, 2003 election, 2007, up to the last 2023 general election. So that tells you that some of those parties registered earlier on, they were not competing as expected because there are guidelines, there are rules expected in registering political parties. There are expectations that party should have at least some level of national spread. But when you look at some of those parties, some of them, they are more of local, regional party. And by doing that, it tells on the fact that our democracy, or some people feel I can have a party within my state, in as much as I can win certain seats, I'm okay. But that is not too good for our national politics. So the concern is not about having more party. It is how vibrant some of those parties are. And that has been a major challenge. It is good things that several parties could be allowed to be registered. After all, in a democracy, they are not supposed to be curtailed. But registering those parties, after meeting up the registration requirement, what happened to their survival? Because in political party, you have to look at parties consolidation. Political party that cannot be consolidated, then what has been the usefulness of such party? And I could recall in 2023 general elections, over 73 political parties presented presidential candidates. But we all knew what actually played out. Apart from the 4 major contenders, others, they were like, trying to pull unnecessary, even some of them could not even win their award. So how relevant are those parties? And at the long run, INEC deregistered more than 70 parties. Now, from today's report, over 110 political parties trying to register again because 2027 election is approaching. Why is it that our political arrangement or our party politics is basically about when election is approaching? The functions and expectations from political parties go beyond electioneering process. It is not about we go for voting, people cast vote for us. That is why we are saying most parties in Nigeria lack clear ideological trend, and that has been the major challenge. And coming on board, over 110 political parties, but you won't be able to see ideological differences, particularly based on what we have on ground before. So basically, it is democratic right for any organization or bodies of people that have met the requirement to be registered. However, we don't need to be wasting unnecessary resources, having large parties without having a clear-cut ideology. So party politics is expected to have a better ideology whereby the electorate or the masses will say, I want to join this political party based on the fact that I'm convinced they have a very good ideology. But in Nigeria,
Doc, thank you very much, Doc. We'll get to that part that you're talking about. But Ezenwa, of course, you've heard what Dr. Rauf, his submission there. Now, with this surge in organizations coming forward to register, are we witnessing a renewed interest in grassroots democracy, or just crowding of the political space?
No, we're not. We are creating special purpose vehicles. The special purpose vehicle, political special purpose vehicles. The idea and the motivation for it is what Dr. Rauf had hinted, and that is that it is meant to drive, fallout, if you like, because that's what it has been. It's never been about. It's never been about what political parties, in its classical sense, what it does. Here, it is about power. It is about elections, and so we have come from a history of where political parties thought that they would be funded by government, and we have had that kind of situation before, where you had those 73 political parties you talked about. Some of them, their addresses and location were in cemeteries. When people went to find out the places that they said their parties were located, it turned out that they were, cemeteries.
They're just political parties on paper.
On paper. So it was a briefcase situation. And the thing is that we hardly learn any new lessons. If you check this 100, and you see that it is a joke taken too far. Many of them asking to be organizations. They are not political parties. They are organizations asking to be registered, have not supplied any logo, have not supplied addresses, have not even supplied pro tem chairmen or secretaries. They just simply send applications, that they want to, and I think INEC is sorting that out. But if you ask my personal view, I will say that INEC has no business registering political parties.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. You see, Dr. Rauf hinted around that the challenge is that there is freedom of assembly, there is freedom of association. People can decide to be political, associations. But if you want to appear on the ballot, if INEC has to put you on the ballot, then there are conditions that you have to fulfill. But your right to assemble, your right to associate is within your constitutionally determined right. So, America has close to 400 political parties, but just a little below 20 appear on the ballot. So you have all kinds of political parties. A simple Google search will show you that. So your right, you can say you want to defend our minimum rights. You want to anything you want to do, but do you want us to put you on the ballot for people to vote for you, then you have to fulfill certain conditions. And those conditions are regulations that INEC have put forward. And that is what INEC is checking now. But just quickly, because you have a short time for this program, INEC has done, some kind of innovations with party candidates nomination, where that is done online and not, physical like it is. If it were before in this Anambra election, you will see a surge of politicians coming to INEC offices. I think that INEC can put these conditions and develop an online portal so that if you don't fulfill those conditions, the system itself completely weeds you out without all these unnecessary conversations around.
Okay, Dr. Rauf, back to you now. Of course, you've just like you've mentioned, and Ezenwo also, corroborated to the fact that some of these political parties are just on paper. Like he rightly says, some did not even have any address, some at the cemetery and all of that. And here we have over 100, as a matter of 110 at this moment, coming to register to become political parties. We know that, as it was also said, some of them are just want to be in the race. At the end of the day, some are just dormant. So, is the legal framework that the electoral umpire, has at the moment enough to make at the end of the day, the parties that will be registered, to make them competitive enough, to face the parties, the functional parties, let me put it that way?
Yeah, thank you. Regarding the Electoral Act or regulations needed for parties registration, it is on INEC website. Those requirements are, in fact, fantastic. Let me give you one of the basic requirements. Party is expected to have some level of national spread, and that has been one of the major requirements for any political parties to be registered. But when you look at what we normally have, it has to do with due diligence, particularly from the electoral umpire, in the fact that what has been, the effort put in place in the process of verifications. Because there is one thing to have guideline, there's another thing to follow it to the latter. So to me, some of those political parties that were registered ab initio, they might not have met the requirements. But because of the political syndrome in Nigeria, whereby some of them believe in cutting corners, that tells that certainly they were not supposed to have been registered earlier on, but because of this unnecessary pressure, some connectivity, in fact, we can call it some level of corruption within the empire itself. That is why some of those parties got registered, and at the long run, they could not sustain the tempo. They could not sustain the association. So in that regard, the rules and regulation guiding party registrations, those rules are clear. But the question is, some of those parties might not be able to meet the conditions, but how come they got registered for the first instance? Like I've said earlier on, over 70 parties deregistered. Why do we need to continue going front and back? Why is it that we don't have a clear-cut agenda? If you are to register parties, there should be continuous, monitoring of the functionality of those political parties. It should not be a game of election alone. It should be something continuous. After all, electoral system is a continuous politics. In fact, democracy cannot be consolidated once you have weak political institutions across board. So what I'm saying, in essence, it is not about the law. We have good laws. Then who are those implementing those laws? What do you mean by implementation? How do you monitor some of those political parties? Do they actually have the spreadness required? What is their level of national spread? The offices they are supposed to have, the secretariat, who are the chairmen, who are the secretary. So when you look at some of those things, you realize that we are moving towards a system whereby political parties come on board. Oh, election is by the corner. This is time for us to make certain, money. This time for us to make noise. And at the after election, they go back to dustbin. Like what my brother said, that most of them, they have been part of cemetery. So basically, it is not about the law, but how are those laws being followed to the latter? And you don't just confirm the availability of necessary secretariats necessary structures, necessary spread during party registration alone. It should be a continuous process. Either maybe every quarter, those parties must also be checked to ensure that they are also on track as far as our regulations are concerned. But after registration of those parties, before you know it, they disappear, particularly after election. And that has been the major issue we are facing. And that is why it is one of the basic problems of our democratization, because lack of internal party democracy itself kills democracy. And in Nigeria, everyone understands the game of political party. And that was why I was making emphasis about ideology. When you look at what is obtainable in the United States, US might have Democrat and Republican as the two major dominant parties. That does not mean there are not other political parties. But people toe along each of those parties based on ideology. But in Nigeria, someone in APC today can find himself in PDP. Next tomorrow, the person might join Labour Party. Then how do we now ensure that for you to belong to a political party, you are expected to be part of the ideology of that party? So basically, to me, it is not about the number, because some of those numbers, they are unnecessarily outrageous. Then you realize that they might not have convincing ideology. And how do you expect me to join a political party without having ideology? So that tells you about the level of our political culture, which is still to some extent at parochial level.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rauf. We'll take a short break now. The conversation will continue after the break. Don't go away.
The implementation of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow under digital economy for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different?
We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that our questions have been designed to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today.
Welcome back. This is still Nigeria Today, and we are looking at the proposed registration of political parties. And of course, I have two gentlemen, one in the studio and one via Zoom, all the way from Kano. So, Ezenwa, of course, you had some of the things. Ezenwa. I keep calling you Ezenwa, maybe because I've been long in real estate. So, Ezenwa. So, he talked about ideology, which is a very, serious issue. We've seen different parties having same ideologies, probably different names. And now we have more parties coming forward, more organizations coming to register as a political parties. How can we ensure that we have different parties with different ideologies, something different, bringing something different to the table, not just the same ideologies, but different names?
It's not in our place as citizens to tell people who want to register organizations what ideology they should pursue.
No, we are talking actually about what INEC can do in this regard.
INEC is the registrar of political parties and regulator of political parties. It cannot force ideology on the parties. The conditions for registration there is no ideological consideration in the registration qualification. What is important is that you have national spread, you have members, and the reason for national spread is because to foster national unity. That's the thinking, the logic of it. And then you are able to galvanize support across the different demographics that make up Nigeria. But parties by themselves must think about differentness, because what makes you a party is that you are different from this party, because at the end of the day you are coming to meet the people to sell something, to say this party in government, I am better than them, I will do things differently. But the truth is that today, if you even watch the 2023 elections, the dominant gladiators were facing in one direction economically. They all said they were going to privatize, they will commercialize, they will remove subsidy, they will sell. there was not one that said, no, we will be autochthonous, we will look inwards, we will think differently. All of them were going to IMF and the World Bank, you know, for dictation. So in reality, what you need to understand right now is that the 18 political parties exist already.
Yes.
And out of that 18, less than 5 or 6 are truly functional, you know, as political parties. And the reason why they have not been deregistered is because they will run to court. There were some that were registered, the court reinstated them. The court reinstated them. So now the window is opened again. But the politicians use the instrument of blackmail and subterfuge to hamstring the electoral management body sometimes. Like you are seeing now, in 2013, when the political parties were trying to merge to form the ruling party now, they came out on INEC. They heated INEC so strongly that the then Professor Jega had to come out and say, look, what is that? In fact, they said that INEC had merged with, you know, the ruling party as at that time. And so that's why INEC did not want to register them. The ones who have not even applied, who just applied recently, we are already telling the public that INEC had already refused them registration. So the subterfuge that you see is also part of what, and sometimes even the citizens themselves don't support our institutions to do the proper regulation. Because when they blackmail them like that, oh, they are now working hand in hand, the regulator is no longer able to wield the big stick the way he should do. And sometimes he even now gives concessions and waivers that. But at the end of the day, what is that overaching need to have new political parties, apart from the desire to assemble and associate? But you need to, you know, fulfill those conditions. So whether it is ideological, and sometimes we also make a fetish of ideology in terms of, you know, thinking that right wing, left-leaning political parties. Among the 18, there are left-leaning political parties. The PRP, for instance, is left-leaning. AAA is social democratic, and some of the other SDP and the rest of them are, you know, left-leaning. But the ones that are coming to register now, I dare you, Eukeria, to look at the list. Their names are almost the same. Alliance, they turned the other one around. There are all kinds of names, you know. But what is important is that we are talking about 110. Out of that 110, over 30 have not even supplied an address. And we observed elections in the off-cycle elections in most of the states. Part of our work was to visit political parties, you know, courtesy visit to political parties to share ideas about the election. Some of them will dribble you from morning till night. If you come to this, they say come to the so and so park. When you come there, they say come to so and so place. At the end of the day, you will not see anybody. And that is the trend. That is what we continue. So INEC has a responsibility to ensure that people who are time wasters, who have no business, you know, functioning as political parties, are not registered. And that is where the work begins. And like Dr. Raul said, you have to constantly go back to ensure, as the regulator and registrar of political parties, you are just like the Nigerian Stock Exchange for political parties. You must ensure that regularly you are telling us how healthy, you know, these political parties are, which ones are sick and which ones need to go to ICU, and then which ones will survive eventually and then come to.
Is it that they don't check their offices before they are registered?
See, no, they will do all that. See, when they want to register, they can hire somebody's house and even ask the person to leave. Then you visit, then immediately you leave, they reassemble themselves and go on. The kind of ingenuity that the Nigerian political elite, you know, devise to shortchange the system is mind-blowing. And sometimes the citizens aid them. Like I said, if we strengthen our institutions, if we support our institutions to do their work, just like the police at times, if you are driving now and a policeman says stop, I want to check your paper, the first thing is anger. Why did he stop me? But it's his job to stop you. It's his job to check you. If he abuses that official responsibility, that's where the challenge comes. But does he have a right to stop you, to check you? He has a right to do so.
Okay, Dr. Rauf, I think this should be my last question to you. Now, how can INEC ensure that newly registered political parties contribute positively to democratic development?
Like what my brother has said in the studio, INEC has a lot of responsibilities, and to me, INEC might not be able to stop any qualified organizations that have met the requirement for registration as a party, because it is part of the democratic space. You know, you have to widen up the space once they have been able to meet up with the requirements. However, there is need for INEC to ensure what is called quality control, or there must be adequate internal mechanism in which those parties are regularly checked. By regularization of such approach, I think INEC has been able to contribute in terms of consolidating or in terms of enhancing our democracy. But it will not sound well on the part of INEC to register maybe from 110 now, and we have maybe 70 or 80 that scale through based on requirements. And after 1 or 2 years, or after 2027 general elections, INEC will still go back to go and deregister them. So this approach...
Very much, Dr. Rauf. We'll just have to go here. Thank you so much. That was Dr. Rauf Zakaria of the Department of Political Science, Nigeria Police Academy. Thank you so much for coming. He joined us all the way from Kano. And of course, here in the studio, I have Ezenwa Nwagu. He's a political analyst and the chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform, and convener, Say No Campaign Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Please, thank you.
And thank you for being part of the program. I'm Eucharia Clinton. Goodbye.